I want to welcome you guys all this morning to the Fisheries Management concurrent session. My name is Chris Kitchion. I'll be moderating, and we'll go ahead and get started. Our first presenter is going to be Dan Mosley. He's the Executive Director for the Pyramid Lake Fisheries, Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. His presentation is going to be on the Lahontan Cutthroat Fishery, Pyramid Lake, Nevada. Dan, if you would like to add a little bit more, you're welcome to. And then, and then just to remind the speakers, you're allotted 30 minutes for your presentation. I'll chime in about 5 minutes to the end, and then if we can, let's just save the Q&A for the last 5 minutes or so. So we'll go ahead and get started. Dan, go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Dan, Northern Paiute, and I've been working for the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe off and on since 1979. And so I worked in the fisheries, I worked as a game warden, I oversaw the water quality monitoring program, and also the water quality standards as it's being developed till we finally got them approved at the end of 2007 by EPA. So, but worked for the tribe for a long number of years. So is my wife. She's an elementary teacher, but this is the first slide here. Just kind of, this is me in my younger years before gray hair, but I don't know if you can see my white cursor, and you can see the lake elevations. This is the pyramid, after which the lake was named after when an explorer, John Fremont, came and he saw that pyramid-shaped rock. And the lake elevation at that time was a lot higher, and the people were living on the shore. And the original name of the lake was named after the fish in our lake. It was, in our language, is Kuiui, and the lake was Kuiuipa, and our people were Kuiui Dikata, and they're the Kuiui eaters. And so that's what our people, the Paiute people, are different bands of Paiute. They're named after what their principal food was. And so for this tribe is Kuiui Dikata. And so that's the fish right here, and you can see how its mouth's orientated. Not like it's in a sucker family, but they eat zooplankton and things like that. So that's why they taste really good, and the people would harvest the fish and dry them and cook them different ways and eat them. But today I want to talk about the some recent changes, some historical changes a little bit, and some recent changes and impacts from like climate change, wildfire smoke, things like that are affecting our fisheries. And so we've done a number of presentations in the past in the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. So, but we're going to look at Lahontan Cutthroat trout today. So, so this is our watershed. We're in the Truckee River watershed in the Sierras, and from the waters and tributaries from around Lake Tahoe, the Truckee River is about 120 miles, flows through Reno Sparks area and into the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation. It's almost 500,000 acres. We have about 32 miles or so of the Truckee River, which is within the reservation boundaries. And primarily that's where the Pyramid Lake fish, the Kuiui, they spawn up the Truckee River, primarily spawning on the reservation and the Truckee River. And the Lahontan Cutthroat trout, they spawn, historically they used to spawn all the way up to the upper tributaries. Even in Lake Tahoe has over 600 tributaries that flow into Lake Tahoe, and some of those tributaries, Pyramid Lake trout used to go all the way up to the upper Truckee River watershed and spawn in those waters. And this fish that you see here, Lahontan Cutthroat trout, that's in Independence Creek in the upper watershed. So the Lahontan Cutthroat trout, they're listed as threatened. They were endangered, but they're down listed to threatened. So one of the impacts that affected the tribe and where we lost about 80 feet of water since 2005 through diversions. And this was one of the biggest diversions that impacted Pyramid Lake, and Truckee River flows going into Pyramid Lake. It was Derby Dam. And it's a Bureau Reclamation projects, one of the first Bureau Reclamation projects in the United States. And it started in 2003, and they completed this dam 3 years later, a couple years later. But it diverted, almost half the water is diverted out of basin for agriculture into the Fallon area. And that really impacted our fisheries. And this dam never had a really good spawning ladder at that time. So over the years, in the 30s, we saw our last spawning run going up the Truckee River. So this block, literally blocked passage for Lahontan Cutthroat trout to go upriver into the upper the tributaries like they used to. Today, on the bottom, you can see this other, they built a bypass here, and they just opened it this year that allowed Lahontan Cutthroat trout to finally, after all these years, they could go upriver, at least to the California state line. So this kind of shows the lake elevation. On the left is the lake elevation. And when the Derby Dam was completed, 2005, the lake elevations begin to drop, TDS levels begin to rise, and it kind of shows you the world record trout was caught by a Paiute in 1925. It was 41 pounds. They caught bigger ones, but at that time they were selling them or eating the fish. They weren't really catching them for records, but the largest one they did weigh was 41 pounds, and that's the current world record. And so this kind of shows when 1938 we saw our last spawning run. Pyramid Lake used to flow into another lake, in Winnemucca Lake, and when the lake elevations dropped, there's no more outflow into Winnemucca Lake, and the Pyramid Lake became a terminal lake. And so our fish, we eventually lost the original strain of Pyramid Lake fish, what we thought. It was in the 1940s. And but years later, we were able to get it back into the lake. The kiwi were listed as endangered in 1967 because of the lowering lake elevations, water diversions going out for agriculture. They were really thinking about fisheries back then. But you can see in the latter years on this graph, from 1980 to 2020, you know, the tribe began, even before that, the tribe began to fight for and get water rights for the Pyramid Lake fish. And also they have the first claims on the Truckee River for agricultural purposes. And so as we begin to fight for water rights, and Senator Reed was able to get us $24 million and to purchase water rights, and in the around 1997 or so, and through Congress, and before the housing boom, and we were actually able to get a lot of water rights and dedicate them to the Truckee River for water quality, ecosystem maintenance, to improve the riparian along the bank shores of the Truckee River, and also for Pyramid Lake fish. And so after that, you can see how, you know, we have a gradual increase of lake elevation water since then. So that's a good success story for the tribe. So here, this one, our spawning events. The fish spawn in the springtime, usually around late March to April, Lahontan Cutthroat trout. So we get a lot of tours. We're really busy, and we get a lot of school. You know, when we have our spawning events, we're doing like 3 or 4 or 5 tours during this event. So this gives the students a chance to come and from different schools, not only from our native schools, but from other area schools that come out. and they're able to see the fish spawning firsthand. And we kind of tell them the history of the fish in our lake and the people. And so the guy in the center here in the blue is my grandson. He always helps out every year with spawn. He works for Natural Resource Department. And you can see all the kids, but it's always a really busy time. And but what changed was in 2020, what changed is COVID. And because of COVID, we had in the rise of cases on the reservation here and also in the surrounding area, which impacted us, our people here. We had, for the first time in our history, we did not spawn, we did not take any eggs. So we just relied completely on what natural spawning was occurring in the Truckee River. So you can see that here, just our fishery production records over the years. In 2020, it was 0. This is what we produced from our hatcheries. So get the eggs from spawning, and that was the total that was released back into Pyramid Lake or the Truckee River. And when they get in the Truckee River, they naturally acclimate and they get work their way back into Pyramid Lake. But you can see here in 2020, we had there's no fish from our hatcheries. Another what is impacting us now, and also back, started 10 years ago. It seemed like the smoke in our area has been getting worse. And I took this picture this morning. This is the Pyramid Lake Basin. Normally you can see Antelope Island. You can see the pyramid when I take this photo. But just to show you the impacts, what's happening from the California fires right now. And I took this shot last night, a screenshot from our local news station. The heavy smoke plume, just if you look at the Reno area, just northwest or northeast of Reno is where Pyramid Lake is, but we're right in that heavy smoke plume, just hazardous conditions. So what that smoke does is, what we found is in the 2016 Thule Fire here in Sutcliffe, where I'm at right now on the west shore of Pyramid Lake, we have a stream right behind us. It's a perennial stream that flows into Pyramid Lake. It's Hardscrabble Creek. And we also have a cultural camp up in that area on tribal lands, where the Thule Fire came and came over the hill, west winds. It was started by lightning, I believe. We had lightning fires, and it just blew right down the canyon where we have a hatchery. And we have these, we have chillers, and we have these cooling towers with there's fins in there. It's kind of like a swamp cooler when you don't want to run your swamp cooler when there's heavy wildfire smoke. Normally you turn it off because otherwise the smoke gets in your home with it. Wildfire smoke, we found when it was coming down the canyon Hardscrabble, our fish were literally jumping out of the pools. And that was inside the building. And then in 2019, when we had wildfires, this is the old chiller, we replaced it. But this chiller right here, or this cooling tower, when that wildfire smoke carries ammonia gases. And when it gets in the interface of when our water in our hatcheries are being recycled, and it goes through this cooling tower, and the water's cooled down, and those ammonia gases mixes with the water. It goes right into our hatchery, right with where the fish are in the pools. And so these are the fins inside the cooling tower. It's kind of like a radiator. It cools the water. But when the ammonia gases from the smoke gets in there, this is what we saw. So first, every week we have our own water quality lab. So we're able to do tests within the same day. We know what the nitrate levels are. We know what the unionized ammonia levels are. And you can see as the smoke came in, we started to see this increase of the unionized ammonia levels up to the toxic levels, to where it was affecting our fish in our hatchery. And so what we had to do is when we saw that we're putting everything together, we decided we had to lower the pools, the water in the pools, and stop recycling the water and bring in fresh water. But what we did is we reduced our density of our fish in half. And that year we had really good flows, water flows going down the Truck River to Pyramid Lake. So we released half of our fish, almost half of our fish, into the Truckee River, several months before we normally do. But we released them into the Truckee River. We brought in fresh water from our wells, and we released. Here's a picture of our staff. They're releasing them into the Truckee River below Marble Bluff Dam. Is about 3 miles up from Pyramid Lake. So that you can see that year we had a lot of good flows, and there's a lot of habitat down below, a lot of places where the fish could hide from predators, and they could naturally acclimate to the higher salinity waters of Pyramid Lake. And as soon as we did that, you can see how the levels of the anonized ammonia levels dropped in our hatchery. And right after we did that, so we brought in fresh water, we lowered the density of the fish in our pools, and the ammonia levels dropped. And that's what, that's how, if it's affecting our, you see the wildfire smoke on the news stations, how they give health warnings, and they show how it's affecting humans and human health, but it's also affecting our fish and our hatcheries. And it's affecting even more is the wildlife and the fish out in our natural environment. So out in the rivers and wetlands and lakes. So we got a lot of heavy smoke and the sediment from that smoke is depositing in our lakes. Later this month, we have Desert Research Institute is going to come out and look at those sediment particles from the smoke. And they're going to correlate that somehow, look at the black carbon in it, and correlate it to climate change, how climate change is impacting our area lake, specifically Pyramid Lake. And this is a wildfire smoke. This is a wildfire result of 2016, the Thule Fire on the reservation, where this used to be a cultural camp. We had a house here and a kitchen area, and the kids would camp in tents around this area. There's a beautiful area, canopy tree, cottonwood trees and willows. We had wetland, and just fire came through and just cleared everything out. And then 3 years ago, early 2019, we had a rain on snow event. This is 3 years after that fire. We had a lot of snow, and then one of those Hawaiian Express type storms came through, and it rained on top of that snow. We had a flooding event it came down and right over our highway, main highway, into Sutcliffe on the west side of the lake. All the debris from the tumbleweeds and everything else from just plugged up the culverts. So we had to get our heavy equipment in there and pull all that stuff out. And this is Hardscrabble Creek going into Pyramid Lake. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a big sediment plume, a lot of sediment, a lot of head cutting upstream. I looked at it afterwards, a lot of damage. I was just prior to this, I was gonna try to put some fish up in this creek and do some rehab restoration projects and make things better for our fish, because our fish, and during heavy flows or good stream flows, they would actually try to spot up in this creek. But now this creek is totally ruined, and just real the erosion, and it just deep head cuts upriver, and it's really bad. But just talk about another interesting thing that happened during the COVID is we had a whiting event on Pyramid Lake. And this happened during the month of August. You can see how the lake turned this really pretty turquoise color. So this occurs every 7 to 10 years. And you can read here, it's a spontaneous precipitation of calcium carbonate. When that takes place, that's when you get this whiting event on Pyramid Lake. The calcium carbonate reaches a saturation point, the calcite precipitates out, and the chemical reaction that takes place turns the lake into this whitish turquoise color. It doesn't affect the aquatic life at all, and it's usually in the upper water column. This where this takes place is in the upper water column of the lake. The lake is about 105 meters. It's probably the upper 20 meters of the lake where this takes place. During this time, you know, the fish are usually around the thermocline, so they're around 70, 80 feet deep in the water anyway. But this is kind of a neat event, you know, if you look at that, what it can do to the lake. As it's starting, I got these satellite views. You can see how the whiting event is coming, and you can see how the currents of the lake is in a counterclockwise. It's going counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, I guess it goes clockwise in a clockwise direction. But here you can see it, the whiting event just starting, and then you can see here about 10 days later how it took over the whole lake. And it's a really unique event that happens in Pyramid Lake. And then of course, our fisheries, you know, even though we had COVID, during COVID, we closed fishing, everything, the whole lake was closed down to recreation. And of course, the tribe lost a lot of revenue. But later in the year, November 2nd, I believe it was, they opened it up back up to fishing. A lot of 20-pounders were caught. Most of the fishermen, I did a Facebook poll, most of our fishermen, they catch and release these bigger fish. And they had fish that are up to 25 pounds. The biggest one that caught last 4 years is 26 pounds. This past February, we had one guy caught one. He measured between 38, 40 inches. That he believed it could have been, it's over 30 pounds probably, that he caught and released. He didn't have anything to weigh it, but he took a video of it before he released it. So we have some pretty enormous fish, big fish. It's a trophy fishery. Most of the line class records are caught for cutthroat trout are from Pyramid Lake. And you can see the adipose fin is missing on this fish. So we, when we tag our fish, we put a micro tag in their nose and we clip the adipose fin. So he's a pretty happy fisherman. I'll just close there and take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Dan. My apologies to all of you. I should, with regards to the questions, you can either post them in the chat, or you could either also post them in the Hulu site, and then Kim would be putting them on the chat. And I believe, and Kim, please correct me, they could also raise their hand, and then we can unmute them.
That's correct.
Okay, so are there any questions at this time for Dan? No questions? Well, Dan, I have a question. With regards to the, people having the opportunity to fish for these, what do you charge as far as, what would the cost fees be and stuff? Is it something you have to make reservations for, or?
Yeah, we have an online permitting system. So the tribal council decided, this is a destination fishery, a worldwide destination fishery, and so the fees are $24 a day, and they eliminated the annual passes, and because it's bringing a lot of revenue for the tribe. But it's $24 a day now, and the only ones who got to fish for free are tribal members, Pyramid Lake tribal members. They can fish for free, but also if you work for the tribe, that's one of the benefits for working for the tribe. You don't have to pay any camping, boating, or fishing permits. But yeah.
Okay. And then I guess a follow-up question, with these larger fish, how you were talking about the adipose fin being removed and then you put a microchip. Is that a pit tag that you're inserting, or what kind of tag is it?
It's a coated micro tag.
Okay.
And I don't have a picture of it here, but it's kind of like the size of what you see in a paper clip, a little bit smaller than that. And yeah, so we put those, we have a machine and put the fish, they're about 4 to 5, 6 inches long. We, put them right against the machine and inject those tags in there. We clip the fins, and yeah, we do that to about 20 to 30% of our fish. This year we're going to target about 25% of our fish that we're going to tag.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Oh, we have one more. We have one question from Steve Whiteman.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, Dan, this is Steve at Southern Ute. Thanks for the presentation. I thought it was great. Just a couple of questions. Is it fair to say that the survival of both the cutthroat and the kiwi is dependent on those flows in the Truckee River being sufficient for them to carry out their life cycle?
Yes, it's the flows, the water quality, the habitat, and also there's a lot I could have talked about, but the tribe, the Truckee River Operating Agreement with the state of California, Nevada, local governments, we're able to, we have fish credit water that's stored in Lake Tahoe and other upstream reservoirs that we could call upon during like this past year, we had really low flows. So we're able to call upon those waters, and we're able to try to get the flows that's needed so that when the fish are in the water, they lay their eggs and the larvae and everything, make sure they get all the way back out to return back to Pyramid Lake. So yeah, it's all those things. The tribe 1990, the tribe, it's Public Law 101-618. There's a water settlement that the tribe got, and Pyramid Lake Fisheries was able to get $25 million from that settlement. And 25% of that, the interest from that, we put back into the principal. So over all the years, we built up that money that's that Bureau of Indian Affairs Office Special Trust that they manage for us, and that helps us operate our fisheries. Plus, grants like the BIA, they have their hatchery maintenance grant. This year we have aquatic invasive species grant. We're looking at the survivability of quagga mussels in Pyramid Lake, and the University of Nevada, Reno is doing that. And so we also get a tribal wildlife grant. There's other grants that we also use, so they help us. But
yeah, that's great. I think with climate change and long-term droughts that are happening, that it's good to hear that at least with the Truckee River, it sounds like the water is legally secure, I guess.
yes,
for the long term, for the benefit of the fish, which is great. Thank you.
yes.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Dan. Really enjoyed your presentation and appreciate your time and your participation.
Thank you.